Spiritual and emotional health are really hard to separate. Our emotional health or lack thereof impacts our spiritual health. And if we aren't in tune with our own heart, it'll be really hard to let God go to work there. Many of us don't have a great handle on how to do this, but it's really not as scary or complicated or as woo-woo as it might sound. So let's see if today we can start to demystify the ideas of spiritual and emotional health. So, Dr. Kim, what are some of the issues that arise when we are not emotionally mature or healthy?
Well, I think when we don't control our emotions, that always causes a problem. And if we don't have any restraint, or then our emotions don't fit the situation, maybe our anger escalates, or it just comes out, we're just right there below the surface all the time. Mm-hmm. And instead of dealing with things, we let it come out, and then we just let it spill over all the people around us. And I think when other things that seem to happen, I think it makes it hard for us to compromise because we do that. I think we can detach from our spouse because we don't talk about our emotions. And so one of the things that, if we're not mature, it's hard for us to sit down and really talk about the real emotions. We talk a lot. We have a chart in the office and has anger, and then all these things that are behind anger, because usually there's something that causes anger. And so what's behind that? And so we don't do that. We just stick with the anger a lot of times because it's safer. We feel more in control when we're angry. And then I think we can get defensive. I think we can hold grudges. I think there's so many negative things that come out of not being emotionally mature or healthy. And I think to some extent, probably all of us can get there a little bit, but I think some people, that's kind of their life, and they stay there and they kind of get stuck there. And then that affects everyone that's in their life to some extent, and especially in a marriage relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really tough because I love what you said about compromise, because it's interesting. I think back to, being, growing up with my sisters, and when we would just get so mad at each other over these tiny things because we did not have any emotional maturity. And so it's like your emotion kind of rises up and takes over in that moment, and you just shut down. You can't really function.
Yes.
And so that's not a very productive way or very fun. And I just remember my mom being like at her wits' end with us because we would just be bickering like little cats and dogs because we just didn't have any maturity yet in that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think I've even had people that threw tantrums as a kid that still throw tantrums as an adult. Now, it may look a little different. Maybe they're slamming doors and that kind of thing, is instead of laying on the floor and kicking, yelling, and screaming. But it's a kind of the same thing. It's still just not controlling those emotions and expressing yourself, trying to get your way, or whatever's behind it. And it's not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of a way
to one other thing I've seen.
Well, I was going to say, I think how extreme it is, it's another control issue. Because, if somebody's yelling and screaming and slamming doors, I mean, that doesn't make somebody be close to them.
No.
At all.
No, that's going to send that pretty clear message. Well, and the other thing I think, too, as adults, we can kind of go the opposite way and just shut down, just kind of go silent treatment. And that's not healthy either.
Absolutely. I taught a class one time, and I would ask them what is silence meant to them. And it was amazing, the different responses. Some people would say, well, it means something's wrong and something's getting ready to happen. And then this was a home where there was a lot of conflict, and if it's quiet, they knew it was getting ready to blow. Somebody's getting ready to blow. And I've had other people say, silence is peaceful. Well, it grew up in a home that was peaceful. And when it was quiet, nobody thought anything. Everybody loved each other, and it was really relaxed. They didn't have to be saying something. And so I think, there's just a lot of things that can go into how we feel about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think one thing I think about this topic too is, our lack of self-awareness holds us back from being able to be intimate with anyone. And that includes God, and that includes our spouse and other relationships. And that's why, when I was thinking about this topic, I can't take them apart, because if you don't have any awareness of what's going on with you, then you can't share that and pour your heart out before God. You can't share that and connect with your spouse. And so, I think there's just so much that we have to learn to unpack if we want to grow in this.
And I think that's the key. Do we want to grow? Do we want to change? Unfortunately, sometimes we get in some really negative behaviors like what we're talking about, and they work in our mind, they work for us, even though they're unhealthy. And so sometimes it's really difficult for someone to say, hey, this isn't healthy, because and they may know it's not real healthy, but it works for them in some way. It either gets them their way or controls someone or something like that. And so they, it's hard to get them motivated to want to make some of those changes.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you haven't been somewhere different, you wouldn't even know how that would look.
No. And obviously it's really frustrating for the spouse that is wanting something to be better.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, and this conversation also, like I've heard some research recently showing that most people, like a wide majority, could only identify 3 emotions.
Interesting.
Which I bet you know what those are: happy, sad, mad. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they had.
Yeah.
And I was going through an experience recently where I was having to really be honest with myself and figure out what it was underneath the sad, mad. And I'm like, okay, there's like something more clear. But like when you talked about anger, when I learned that anger was a secondary emotion, that kind of blew my mind. At that point I was like, what? I thought anger was, but no, there's all kinds of things under there.
Exactly. And I think that's such a good point. What you said, well, okay, why am I mad? I'll ask that sometimes in counseling. What's behind your mad? What's behind your sadness? And help them can understand, because really, if we haven't really thought about that or searched that, or probably we're not going to know. We just stick with, I think that's great what you said. We stick with those 3 because we can do that. But understanding why we're doing that is so important.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because it does take some work. So I had to really like puzzle out I'm disappointed. I feel disappointed. And that it doesn't really sound that super deep, but it felt really vulnerable. Like, oh, I have a hurt feeling, and that's different than mad, but that it takes some slowing down, some reflection. And so a lot of times we'd rather just kind of gloss over it, forget about it, maybe turn on the screen, watch something. Right. Because it takes some work. And
not take the time to really deal with it. And I think too, just sitting down, give yourself 10 minutes and pray and God reveal what is behind this, and let God kind of guide you. Maybe you write while you're doing that and see what comes out. Because I think if you get in that pattern, you'll begin to understand yourself better, and you'll also be a lot more emotionally healthy, because you'll be dealing with your emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that leads us right into our next question. What are some of the barriers to growing in emotional health and maturity?
I just think that maybe we don't see the value in it. Maybe we think, like I said earlier, that it works for us. Maybe there was some trauma in our past that we haven't dealt with. Maybe there was some stuff from our family of origin. Maybe we didn't have a supportive parent, or there was some absent parent, or some things that went on there that have affected us. And so a lot of those things, which I think, in counseling, what I like to do with people is to help them understand why they're acting the way that they are. And a lot of times we'll go back family of origin and some things in their past, but I don't think it's good to get stuck there. Then you bring that forward. Okay, now as an adult, what do you do to be healthy? But I think those affect us, trauma especially. There's so many things that can affect us in that. And so maybe family of origin, trauma, things like that, parents, family that wasn't emotionally or physically available for us, or that they, or even abuse. Some of those things, all of those, I think, kind of can keep us stuck until we deal with them.
Yeah, totally. I think that another one that I kind of alluded to just a minute ago was just not taking the time, not feeling like it's worth taking the time, or just really not wanting to, because we don't want to go there. And I think sometimes, I know for myself, if I've done like social media fast or break or something like that, it is almost shocking sometimes the amount of feelings I start to feel when I don't have that quick distraction of a screen. I remember the first time I did that, I was like, what is wrong with me? Something is wrong. I thought I was like having a breakdown because I had so many feelings that I usually would just quickly like tune out.
Yeah.
Just like very quickly. And so taking the time, like you said, taking a little time. I think another thing, and this might be, coming from having in my household, I have a husband, a girl, and 3 boys. So we very male, driven environment here. But I think that sometimes there's this kind of like idea of emotional health as being like kind of sad or sappy, or like that we have to like get carried away and kumbaya in a circle or something weird. But what I've realized is that if we are not actually in tune with our emotions and what we're feeling, the feelings are not gone. They're still there.
Absolutely.
And we're actually spending a lot of energy either trying to like cover them or escape them. Even if we never speak them, they're still there. And so if we can just process them, pray through them, journal them, something like that, then it kind of works itself out a little bit. And I've been really cognizant of that as a mom, especially to some boys going, you're saying you're not mad, but you're yelling. Like the feeling is there, even if you're not admitting it. What can we do about this?
Well, and I think the fact that you're doing that with your kids, especially boys, because sometimes I think it is harder for us just because we're boys or what culture does to us and everything. But helping it, the sooner a guy can understand that and understand what it as himself emotionally more, it's going to be healthy for him. It's going to be healthier if he's at home for you, the parents and everybody. And it's certainly going to be healthier when he meets a woman that he wants to spend the rest of his life with, to already, because I have so many couples I work with that the guy never learned how to do that. And so 10 years into marriage, he's trying to do that because he knows this isn't working the way I'm doing things. So I think anything we can do to help our boys, grandsons, sons to understand that, I think is huge, because I think the other thing is sometimes we feel like we can push them down. We'll just avoid them. And what I see happen there's an explosion coming. Eventually that you're just full, and it just comes out in all kinds of, and it may come out at something that is so minor that the people around you are going, what? I was 5 minutes late for dinner and you're throwing up all over me and won't stop, So it's important to learn, one, to acknowledge them, and then to deal with them so they don't pile up inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. And that's what, I mean, for me, I'm a bit of a stuffer myself. So like, would just kind of try to like avoid the negative feelings by pushing them down. And so I think for me, learning to process through, like I was describing earlier, like, okay, what is this feeling? It's disappointment or whatever. And that helps me to not hold those grudges, because really grudges or bitterness is going to be a big part of those explosions, because it feels like you wronged me 10 times. And this 11th one was the straw that broke the camel's back. But if we had processed through and forgiven or worked through, or if I had the courage to say, that hurt my feelings, can we talk about it? It wouldn't have built up like that. But that takes a lot of vulnerability. It's not easy to do, especially if you've never seen somebody do it.
Right. If you haven't had it modeled for you at all. So do you think, Lindsay, that over time that has become easier for you to do that than when you first started?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. At first, I'm just thinking specifically in marriage, when Brian said, I feel like you've got a grudge, I would say, no, I don't. What are you talking about? No, I don't. And I really didn't see it. I wasn't trying to be dishonest. I just didn't see it because I stuffed it down so far. It was very,
like, no, I don't. Right.
Yeah, I am fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, no, it's still there. It's coming out sideways now. Yeah.
No, exactly. And so it does. It just can go all over the place. And there are those barriers. And I've never seen a barrier that could not be broken down if we're willing to do it. And it, like you said, it does take work. But I think what I hear you saying, once you got in the pattern of doing that, it became more natural to do it. It probably becomes easier as you go along because you've understanding yourself more. Yeah,
absolutely. And also having kind of the fear of trying that process at first, because it's just unknown.
Yes.
And so at first kind of taking the, airing that not so nice feeling, saying, my feelings are hurt and I want to talk to you about it. I feel like a lot of times I would have avoided that, thinking that's like, oh, it's going to be a confrontation or an argument. But in reality, it's probably going to prevent an argument or confrontation.
I agree. And I think if you got a spouse like you do that wants their marriage to be good, that wants both of you to be healthy, if you give them that opportunity, I think they're going to respond to it. And I think it's something not to be afraid of. And so if you do and your spouse doesn't respond, then maybe counseling's the next step to help you all get there. But I think a lot of times the spouse will respond in a good way.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where some of the, family of origin or maybe like friend, past trauma or past relationships can just scare us into not trying.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you've been in a relationship with someone that was maybe gaslighting you, narcissistic, things we've talked about on other podcasts. Sure. And I think it's realizing that if you're in a different relationship, not to put all those attributes on that person, give that person a chance to be who they want to be in the relationship and see how that goes. Yeah,
that's really good. That's really good. So what are some of the steps that you have seen help people grow emotionally?
Well, kind of what we just talked, identifying the root cause, I think is so important. And because like I said earlier, anger is so easy to stick with because we feel in control. So what is the root cause? What's behind that? What did this person do? Were your feelings hurt? Were there, and sometimes I think as guys, that's one of the hardest things to admit, that our feelings were hurt by our spouse, but they are at times. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to give that information to your spouse, because if you're both working on your marriage, I want to know that. If I hurt Nancy's feelings, I want to know it. I think she feels the same way. And so I think those kind of things. So I think journaling your thoughts and emotions can help as far as helping you grow. Just taking the time, like you were saying, to kind of think through that prayer, I think involving God in it. God wants us to be healthy. He knows us better than we know ourselves. So when we invite him into that space, I think he does amazing things. And it may just be the awareness or helping us understand of each other, or bringing something to light from the past that really affected you in a way that you didn't think it did, or maybe you had kind of buried it a little bit. And so involving God into that in prayer, I think really helps. And then I think too, growing emotionally healthy is really building that relationship, digging into that relationship with your spouse, quality time with your spouse, those kind of things. But I think figuring out what's behind it is so important, and then going through and letting God work in it. And then how do I change? How do I grow now that I have this information? Yeah,
that's good. That's good. And one thing that's really interesting to me about, following Jesus and trying to grow like more spiritually healthy, I feel like it's important to remember that God does not force our growth. We have to allow him. Like he's a God who allows us to make our choices, and he will spark growth, and he will give the strength, and the Spirit does the work. But if we just kind of shut him out of things, he will not, always dig in there. Sometimes he might bring something to light, but a lot of times if you're shutting it down, you're not going to grow there. And so I think this, the process like you're talking about, and then just being really honest in prayer, looking in the Psalms there's a lot of emotions there, all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. You can see David get mad at God and all kinds of things. And what gave me the freedom is that God is going to be there no matter what our emotion is and how we come to him. And he's there for us, and he can change that anger into something that's different than that, something healthier as that. And I think too, sometimes I think we feel like, well, our emotions are so out of control. Why does God even care about me? Why would I even go to him? And I think just saying, don't be afraid to go to God, that he is always there for you, no matter what you've done or where you've been. And he wants things to be better for you, and just not to be afraid of that, because ultimately he's the one who really provides the real healing.
Yeah, that's really good. There's one more specific practice that I have found really helpful that I learned from Pete and Jerry Scazzaro at Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. They're at emotionallyhealthy.org. And I'll link that in the show notes, because they've got such good, helpful, I love their podcast and a lot of good stuff. But there's just a really simple practice it's a little more structured, but you take a couple minutes. I think you allot like 2 minutes per quadrant. So you're going to take a piece of paper, draw a line crossing down the middle. So it's 4 quadrants, and take 2 minutes on each quadrant. In the first one, write down anything that's making you feel sad, anything making you feel anxious, anything you're looking forward to, and anything, what's the fourth one? Sad, angry, anxious, and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
So in that process, sometimes you sit down and you're like, oh, I don't feel that. But if you set that 2-minute timer and you wait those 2 minutes, things might start to flow. 2 minutes is a little longer than you think when you're just sitting with your thoughts.
It can be forever.
It's a great start.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It's amazing how fast it can go sometimes. And sometimes when you're doing something like that, our pastor, this is a little aside, but it kind of ties in because I think it was healthy. Our pastor challenged us to spend 5 minutes a day with the God in silence. And the first time, oh my gosh, 5 minutes. Like, are you kidding me? This is going on. I've been here an hour and a half. I have to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So first time I didn't do really well because I kept looking at my clock the whole time. Next time I just set the alarm for 5 minutes, set it aside, and then just tried to begin. And it was a process. It took hard. So 2 minutes can seem long too. But I think and I love everything that Pete does. I think that's a great tool to give us to kind of begin to come up with, to understand ourselves better and to give God more to work with, to know what to go to God in prayer with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so if we do start growing emotionally more healthy, how's that going to impact our marriage?
Well, I hope it's going to do it in a positive way. I think it's going to improve your closeness. I think it's going to improve your intimacy, both physical and just emotional. I think there's going to be trust there that maybe wasn't there. It's just so many healthy things. I mean, when you really stand at the altar, I did a wedding last week, and I love doing weddings because it's helped me get in touch more again with why Nancy and I are married, and just the vows of what we commit to at that time, and it helps us get back to being able to live out those vows that we committed to the day we stood at the altar together. And so when we get back to some of those things, I think we value our relationship better. We feel we're healthier in it, and it becomes more of what we really wanted it to be. You didn't get married to fight with somebody the rest of your life, or to be unhealthy with, or to get emotionally detached from. No, you got married to this person to do life with for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're right. It's like, that's going to build the trust. We're always talking about, the trust is kind of like a good foundation for almost everything else. If you can trust each other with these feelings and with sharing these types of things, that is vulnerable and intimate. And so it's going to grow all your intimacy.
Yeah. I can remember the first time I was vulnerable in prayer with Nancy, and Nancy had been vulnerable when we do our prayer together. She'd been vulnerable for a long time. She's so far ahead of me spiritually and still is. But so the first time I was vulnerable in prayer and I finished, I just had this panic feeling inside. I can't believe I was just vulnerable. She is going to think I'm a wimp. And, I open my eyes and she's there with tears in her eyes. And I think, okay, I can do this. But it wasn't easy. And I think, and I know some women struggle with that too. My experience in counseling is, as men, we struggle with it more than our wives do. It can be the opposite, sure. But I think men, I don't know, we just have this stigma or this way we want to portray ourselves and not be vulnerable or not feeling like, and that's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of health. And it's a sign that you are willing to go deep within yourself and then to share that deepness with your spouse. And your spouse is going to it's going to be like she becomes your cheerleader. She's going to be so excited,
Absolutely. I mean, just from, again, it's obviously individual, but I would say, men, your wife wants to know you have emotions. She wants to know they're in there. Yeah. She might be wondering, is anybody home? And so to give her that glimpse and that honesty will be just, she'll be doing like a dance over there. She'll be so excited just because it's so helpful to know, like, I'm not the only one who has these, you're not going to have the same feelings, and that's fine.
Right.
But to be able to connect in that way, and you don't have to do that all the time, but like when it's pertinent and when it's relevant, I mean, that is so life-giving, I think, as a woman to know, like, you're willing to share that with me. I know that's hard. I know that because it's hard for me. And so it's something that's very connecting and very, it's very intimate. It builds that relationship in a really healthy way.
Yeah. I'm glad you said something I think is really important there. You don't have to go there every day. I think what I wanted to do is get where we could go there every day if we needed to, because a lot of days we're just, regular tough, what's going on, this kind of stuff. And then what are we going to pray about? But there's times that you want to be able to go deep and talk about your emotions and your feelings and try to understand where you are with that and to share that with your spouse so that they can walk beside you, so they can pray with and for you. And that continues to build all those things that we want in a marriage relationship that connect us.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. So making the transition from like the emotional side of things to the spiritual side of things, what are things that are parts of our spiritual health, and how does it tie into the emotional? Well,
I think when we're healthy emotional, it does help it kind of goes both ways. They're both important. If I'm healthy spiritually, I think it helps me be better emotionally, because I'm more in connection with God. I'm more in connected with who I am and who he created me and those kind of things. I think that it also then it gives us more peace. I think it gives us hope. I think that's what I see for the spiritual component is when we're down about our emotions, when we're stuck and we're maybe sad or depressed or whatever is going on, anger, that there is always hope. And I think the spiritual side of that brings out the hope that wherever we are, God has an answer for it. And yes, it may take work. I mean, God could just zap us and change it, but it seems to me, my experience is that he walks us through the process, because I think we learn more by going through it than him just magically doing it. Now, and times I wish he'd do it the other way, but I also know that I learn more and grow more when he walks through it with me. And so I think that's there. And so it gives us hope, and it helps us a relationship with him. I think our spouse seeing us rely on God as we make those changes is it just strengthens your marriage and your relationship. And I think in turn, then it allows you at some point to come aside somebody else that's struggling in the same way. And I think the more of us guys that can do that, and women too, but I think women do it better than we do. I think it gives us the opportunity then to God can use us in somebody else's life. Which, to me, that's how God redeems everything. He heals us and helps us get healthy, and then he brings somebody in our life that needs what God just did with us, that we can walk with that person, with God, through what they're going through.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's really hopeful too, because it's not wasted.
Absolutely. God just doesn't waste things. Yeah. And he will equip you. Sometimes, oh my gosh, I might have to do it. Yeah. Well, if God brings someone in your life, he's going to also give you the answers and whatever you need to do in that person's life that God wants you to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And it might take a little bit of bravery, but you can take that step at that point.
Yeah. It is a step out in faith at times. And then, which is so cool when you do that. I mean, I remember, my heart's beating fast, and my mouth's dry, and I still say something. And then afterwards I think, oh yeah, that was what God wanted me to do. And it's so good afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like, if you've ever been on the other side where you're like, I think God's telling me to do this, but I don't want to do it. And then you don't, and you're like, oh man, like you just realize later, even if it's something that seems really small, like he's saying, go talk to that person or whatever it is. If you don't do it, that's a terrible feeling. It's much worse.
It is. Yeah. Yes. Our pastor even talked about a story one time, and he was driving, and there's a guy on the side of the road, and he said, God kept telling him to turn around. He didn't turn around. And he said, I always wonder what I missed. And I thought it was such a good, vivid description. I think we all have that. And so I think if God prompts us, there's something good going to come for us too. And even though we think, what in the world am I doing? I got to be home. I got to do this or that. Sometimes, so, I love the story when Jesus was going to raise Lazarus. No, it was the little girl that was ill. And so he stopped with a woman who had touched him, and that interruption, and he spent time with her, and he healed her. And then he went on to the little boy or girl had died, and Jesus went on to heal them too. So I think Jesus shows that there are times that interruptions are important, and that those interruptions, taking advantage of that, how God can use that too.
Yeah. And I love that kind of goes along with our theme here of like this stuff. It feels like it's going to take a lot of time, and it feels like it's going to be awkward or uncomfortable, but there's a lot of good on the other side.
Yes. So just
and
encourage people, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not.
Not
it's
easy
not.
for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, this goes back to our verse that I've been having to quote every part of this health series is Mark 12 talks about, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And then flowing from that is the next command, love your neighbor as yourself. And you can't separate these, because you can't love your neighbor. You can't love the people around you if you don't know how to love. And you learn how to love when you love God with all of your being. So it talks about in that verse, heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's all interconnected because God designed it that way.
I had a guy tell me one time that, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, I had a guy one time, and he said, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and do whatever you want. And I thought, first I went, and I thought, well, of course, if I'm loving God that way, what I want to do is going to reflect my relationship with him. And I thought, I just thought that was cool. It's just like God gives us free will, but he helps us use it, and he can really help us use it in good ways and healthy ways.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's so like indicative too of like when Jesus says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. It's like, we're talking about the stuff that sounds hard, and we're acknowledging it is hard, but it's hard in the way of the yoke of Jesus being like, okay, you might not want to take that on, but when you do, you'll find that freedom.
Yes.
That you really wouldn't trade for anything.
I know. It's just taking that first step.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so another way I think that this does tie in from the spiritual to emotional is something that I alluded to a couple of times already, but it's if you don't know what's going on in your heart, how are you going to let God into that? And how are you going to grow, through that? Because I think what we do sometimes, we just want to separate things, like, okay, well, I'm having a really hard time, but I don't know if God cares about that, or, I don't know if it's wrong to feel this way, or if I should just get over it or whatever. But he already knows. He already knows what's in your heart. He already knows how that situation is going to resolve. He knows everything. So just to go ahead and open up about that. And I know some people, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I should journal this because other people live in my house too, and I don't want them to open that journal necessarily and find their names in there or whatever. But it's just, there's something to that. If we're working through that stuff, then we can let it go. We can just let it go.
And writing seems to be so. And if you have, use a little code if you need to, if you're afraid somebody's going to grab it. That only you and God know what the code means.
Yeah, and you can always write it and delete it, tear it out, whatever you got to do. This processing does help. So what are some of the best ways to grow more spiritually healthy?
I think the basics for me is what keeps me spiritually healthy. And when I don't do them, I don't feel as healthy spiritually. So it's prayer, it's Bible reading plans, YouVersion plans. It's being in church. Worship is so important to me. And, I think the national average is couples who say they're Christian, or families go to church 1 out of 4 Sundays. I don't think that's enough. I just think we need to be there. And seriously, you're only talking about an hour or so a week. Yeah. And so figure it out, or go to a church that has evening services or something that allows you consistently to be in church. And then being around other believers, whether it's a small group or people you hang out with or things that you do. But I think all of those things help us grow spiritually, help us have others walk with us, connect us with God. And all of that together, I think, helps us have a better spiritual health. Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right that going to church once a month isn't enough. It's just, you're catching a little bit, but part of the deal with going to church is being around other people who are going through things, getting to know them, talking through what everyone's going through. And so that requires some work too. Absolutely. It's like, going through the trouble of sharing what's going on with you, being honest about it, being willing to stick with people when they're going through some kind of messy stuff. I know in small group we're in right now, we have parents of toddlers, parents of teens, parents of grown children who are out of the house. And that is the coolest thing, because if you're just in one stage, you might think like, oh, it's going to be so easy when when you get to the next stage or whatever thing it is. But it's just humbling. We all look around and we're like, okay, we've all got real life. Everyone's living real life. And sometimes it's going to look easy. Sometimes it's not. But the one thing I love about church
is that everyone's there because they recognize to some degree that they need Jesus. And so I think a lot of times we might look around and go, these people look like they've got it all together. And I don't think anyone's there thinking that. Somebody might be, but I think for the most part, when I talk to people, it's like, I'm here because I know I'm a sinner. I know I need some help.
Absolutely.
And so I think we have to let those prejudgments go. Like if they're looking nice that day, let them look nice and have that good day, because that's not the whole picture. Just, you got to be willing to get in there and learn about people. And that takes time too.
Sure. And if we had it all together, we wouldn't need church.
Yeah.
But we don't, and we do.
Yeah, we do. And the only kind of church there is a church with people in it. So it's going to be a bit of a mess.
Right,
That's just the only option. We're all sinners.
Yeah. And I think, I've talked to a couple people, this come up a couple of times last couple of months of people I've talked to that were in churches where there was some conflict or some turmoil, and people, whether it's they're mad at the preacher or what kind of stuff. And he said, this one guy said, I just can't worship there. I said, it's also okay to leave. Pray about it. And God may just, because if you can't worship there, if things have happened in that church, find a church that you can worship in, unless you feel God is saying, stay here.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times, and then if we just stay there until it gets worse and worse, and then all of a sudden, no, we're not going anywhere. And I think knowing it's okay to find another church home if you need to, that's healthy, and it's healthy for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think wherever you're going to be able to engage more is a good place to be, because I know sometimes people will come to church, kind of like kicking and screaming, like they don't want to be there. You can see it all over their face. Yeah. You're like, well, I'm glad you're here, but it doesn't seem like you want to be here. And so if you're entering into a church with that kind of mindset, you might need to figure out what's going on here, because you might need to talk to, some of your friends or leaders to see, is there something going on that I am bringing to the table,
yes,
as a person attending church, or do I just need to find another place to go? Because I've seen some, sit in the chair with the crossed arms and the scowl, and it's like, God can do anything, but if you are coming in there determined to hate it, it's probably not going to be great.
No, if you haven't taken your sunglasses off and you're sitting there with a frown and your arms crossed, you're probably not in exactly the right mood to be in church that day.
It's so true. I'm praying for you if that's you. But
yeah. And, any of us can get there, and there's all, and I know that we probably should say there's all kinds of reasons people have struggled with church. Maybe it's growing up as a family or a bad experience in a church, but just remember what Lindsay said. The church is made of people. We're all sinners. So a church is not going to be perfect.
Right.
And don't expect it to be. It's God. It's God. Don't put those labels onto God, because that's not him. It's a fallen people just like us that are in that church. Yeah.
Yeah. And I grew up in a ministry household, and I'm married to a pastor. So I've seen every angle of it. And I know I've seen all kinds of things, but the truth is Jesus loves the church. That's his bride.
Yes.
You can't love Jesus and not love the church.
Exactly.
So that's where it leaves us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I agree. There's reading the word. I think one thing people run into with not getting into scripture is just feeling some sort of not knowing how to. And that's where things like YouVersion plans are really good. There's some great podcasts on YouVersion too that unpack the Bible. And then also I think people run into guilt. They say, I really should. And I think if that's you, then I think starting small can be really good. Start with one proverb or one psalm or even one verse.
Yes.
Just getting in the word any is better than never, because you just feel so behind or so shamed.
Yeah, I'm going to plug something else because I love it. And it's a Bible project that these two guys are now doing. And they make the Bible about as simple as I've ever seen it, and it's clear on things. And it's an app, and you can go there. They also have a year through the Bible reading plan, but you can go there and you can pick any book in the Bible and put it in there. And they're just about through with every book. I think they're getting close anyway. And the way they lay that out, especially what I've really enjoyed is some of the prophets in the New Testament and how they help us see, because I would just kind of go, it seems like the same thing over and over. Well, kind of is, but kind of isn't. And so I think it gives you deeper understanding. And so it's a great tool that Nancy and I have loved since we got started using it probably the first of this year for some things.
Yeah, I agree. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I think one other thing with that, one great thing about the Bible Project is it reminds me of like what the Bible is really about. A lot of times I'm approaching it because I want to know, like, God, what do you want me to do? God, what do you have for me? But the Bible Project, when I see it in context, it reminds me like he has a lot bigger picture going on here. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we don't see.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see they kind of tie some of those things together. That makes sense a little more.
Absolutely. And they just do a great job. The two guys that do it, their voices, the way they portray things are awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll put that, just a little information about that in the show notes too, so people can see that.
It's fun.
So if we are doing these steps, what are some markers that give us evidence that we're actually growing spiritually?
Well, there's probably a lot, but I kind of just put it all in one for me, and that's trusting God. And the more that I learn to trust God, the more doors that opens up in my relationship with him and relationship with others. And it gives me a confidence. It gives me, I don't know, maybe a sense of security because I've sought God and I know he's not going to guide me in the wrong way. And it allows me to become more healthy because he's helping me become more healthy. So I think just that trusting in him at a deeper and deeper level. And I think it's something we continue to do our whole life. And we get off path at times and get back on. But I think the more we do those things, the more our trust builds with God. And to me, that just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. That really does. I also think of the fruits of the Spirit.
Wow, that's good.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, goodness, and self-control. And it's a really slow process. It might take look back in 6 months or in a year and be like, oh, I did grow. It's not instant.
That's why I think journaling is helpful because you can look back at the end of the year and say, oh, I am different than I was this January. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, that's the best way is looking back.
And sometimes we don't realize all that God's done because it is usually, most times it's a lot of baby steps. Sometimes it's a big thing. And obviously those are the markers in our life that we remember. But most of the growth I found has been just a day at a time, continue to seek him. And over time you grow in your relationship with him.
Yeah. And sometimes it's actually more frustrating. I think sometimes you feel like you're going backwards because you're more aware now.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And so that can be frustrating, but that doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean you are going backwards. No. It's just awareness.
And I love you about the fruits of the Spirit. I think sometimes picking one of those and just praying about that one and asking God to build that into your life the way you want him to. Those are some good ways to grow spiritually. And it's because those are also things that are so important to us in our life and our relationships.
Yeah. And they help all of our relationships too. I think one final marker of growing is more love of God, more love of his word, more love of the church. Cause those are the things that we know Jesus values. We know, relationship and love of the Father, love of holiness, love of the scripture and love of church and love of people are very important to God. And so when we're growing in loving what he loves, then that means we're going to be more like him, even if it's really, really slow.
Right. Exactly. And and don't compare.
Yeah.
If somebody else you're even talking to, or if they're growing faster than you, that's okay. God will get you where he wants you to be. And we don't all grow at the same time. And so don't let that bother you. Just like I said, if I let it bother me that Nancy was farther ahead than me and given up, I wouldn't be where I am today. And one day I'm going to catch her.
You're gonna win.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think but it's fun. I think when you both as a couple, I think that's one of the real blessings in marriage is when you are growing in spiritual together and you're sharing that and you're seeing that in each other. And that's a lot of fun. And I think it also changes your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think that anything is more exciting than having like that trust in God and just seeing him work in different parts of the world and of life. It's really exciting.
It is. In the craziness of our world, seeing that just to me changes everything. I don't have to worry about all this stuff that's happening. I can do the things I can do. I can pray about things, but no, God's still in control, and He's got a plan for me. So I got to keep doing what He has planned for me.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So this has been a really encouraging conversation, Dr. Kim, about emotional and spiritual health. What is the final word of advice you would leave us with today?
Well, I hope it makes you think as you listen to this. I hope if there is some emotional things that you feel, ooh, I'm kind of there, or that you make the next step to try to begin to deal with that. Some of the things we talked about earlier in the podcast, and then also working on your spiritual health. I think that's something we have to consistently do. And I have so many people that I've counseled that said, I used to pray every day. I used to read my Bible every day. I used to go to church, and I'll say, well, what was your life then? Oh, it's so much better. And I say, yeah, there's some reason that we can all fall off of that. And so I think knowing to continue to grow spiritually and how that affects us emotionally, just continue to do those things. I think it's the consistency day after day after day, doing those things that brings the healing, and that brings the trust, brings life in a way that only God can bring it to us.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a great encouragement. So as we're going to close out this week's episode, we have our fun new feature that I'm really enjoying. It's so fun to see these questions. But we have an anonymous question from one of our audience members. And I just want to let you know, if you have a question you'd like to hear Dr. Kim answer on the podcast, if you are subscribed to the One Thing to Grow Your Marriage daily email, there is a place there to submit a question anonymously that Dr. Kim can then possibly be able to answer on the podcast. So this week's anonymous reader question is, this is great information and it is needed for my marriage. I read it every day, but honestly, I don't always apply it. I send it to my husband, who never reads it and could care less. So it takes away my motivation sometimes. Dr. Kim, what would you say to this person?
No, that's frustrating. I totally understand that is. And I think they're referring to the one thing where we give people something they can do that day for their marriage. I would say this: continue to do what God wants you to do. And I think continue to persevere, continue to grow yourself, learn, ask God to help you apply it. You said that you read it every day, but you don't always apply it. Ask God to continue to help you apply it. In other words, what I'm saying is not so much to look at your spouse, but to look at God. Okay, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to grow as a wife or a husband in that situation? And then I think you continue to invite your husband in. I think you model it. You don't nag him. You don't badger him. You don't quit cooking dinner for him because he won't read the one thing. You continue to be the wife that God wants you to be. And to me, there's a joy and a peace in that obedience, even whether your spouse responds or not. You're knowing at the end of every day that with God's help, I did the best I could today. And then you continue to invite your spouse in and say, hey, this was a great one thing today. Maybe you say, this is a great one thing I read a couple of days ago, and that's why I did this, this, and this, and I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you received that. And just beginning to model that, and hopefully and pray that he will want to join you in that. Because when the couples I see that they're both doing the one thing are really having fun with it, and the marriage is growing. So just to encourage this person, don't give up, persevere, do what God wants you to do.
That's good. That's really good.
So if you enjoyed today's podcast, take a minute to leave a rating and a review. It would mean so much to us. Follow the link in our show notes to leave an iTunes review. That is one of the best ways for people to see the show that haven't seen it yet, which we want to do. There's a lot of marriage content out there, and we're passionate about bringing God's purpose for marriage into the podcast space. That's why we do what we do. You can help us make that happen. If you benefit from this, please share it, review it. It will make such a difference for us. Thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. And this week, we'll also make sure we link to all of the resources we mentioned in today's show. Make sure to reach out to us at info@awesomemarriage.com if there is anything you need from us. We love hearing from you. Thank you for listening and for sharing your time with us today. Have a great day and do something awesome for your marriage today.